Good afternoon. Welcome to the North Point of View. I'm with Dr. Walter Kemmsies. Walter?
Hey, Mark, how are you?
Good, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Really great.
Good to be back. Got a few things to talk about today. Let's start with EV. We've talked about it off and on. The stock prices of the EV companies, dramatic drop is not new news, but it's significant.
Yeah.
I mean, Rivian's topped out around 168 a share, maybe 170, back down to 25, now up to 32. But that says something about people's confidence in the EV world overall, right?
Exactly.
We got headwinds of lithium supplies, got a ton of competition. We've got lack of charging stations and what that looks like in the future, overall consumer sentiment. Is there a silver lining?
It's a really, really good point. So let's look at who figured it out. That was the Chinese maker, BYD. You shared that article with me. And the news in it was interesting, but what I cared about was how well the Wall Street Journal article articulated their control of the supply chain. So they practically own lithium mines. They're focused on getting lithium refined for use in the battery.
Right.
They have their own battery making, factory. They have their own chip making factory. So a lot of the core stuff where we've seen severe supply chain problems, BYD saw that in advance and they took care of the problem.
That's I don't know if the term vertical integration is used anymore, but old school, that's what we called it, right?
Exactly. Back in the day, and they should still call it that today. So that was brilliant. I like that vertical integration. I was surprised they didn't make their own tires, but that's it's good enough. The core stuff.
But not everybody's got the capital to do that. I mean, we saw a situation. I guess was it the UK company sent you that article this morning that they're running out of capital, right?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. In fact, a lot of them are because their production goals are not being met. And you remember I'm consulting with a company that's going to recycle things. Yeah. And it's the same issue there. They had plans to get started, but things get postponed. There's patents you have to have. There's permits, and a lot of these guys who are doing this stuff, they're kind of they may have hired some smart people, but they're still kind of virgins when it comes to really building out a supply chain.
Yeah, and there's a couple of things we know about development in the development world.
Yeah.
It always costs more than it costs, and it takes longer than it takes.
Exactly.
I mean, and especially in an evolving technology like this, right?
Yeah. See, the other problem too is they're trying to be ESG.
Yeah.
And you shared that article with me last year from the Wall Street Journal. Again, I saved that one. It was an excellent description of the fact that when you make an EV today, you do more damage to the environment than when you make a complete internal combustion engine.
Yeah, those lithium mines look pretty rough.
They are.
Right?
The refining of the lithium is really, it damages your soul, not just the environment.
Yeah.
So the other problem is it's not really 100% lithium in those battery cases. It's lithium and some other metals. So that's what's used to make the battery work. So some of these metals came from West Africa, where we have conflict minerals and conflict, gems and things of that nature. So some companies like Tesla had to figure out how to get that stuff out of their battery and reformulate it. So these, now it turns out that the biggest deposit of lithium in the world is not in China. It's commonly believed that China has the most lithium in the world, and the answer is no. It's Chile, it's Bolivia, and Argentina. So there's a big area that straddles all three countries, and that's exciting because then China can't play games with the rare earth metals. The only problem is, and by the way, they still will. They'll just sit there and manipulate prices. So China's done this since they joined the WTO. But Chile has taken a bit of a turn to the left.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're very concerned what the copper mining is doing to the native, people there. And
we had that article earlier this week. A couple of those mining companies actually left the country.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then you pointed out that the the lithium is going to be even worse, even more difficult,
Right.
because there isn't that much water in these kinds of places.
Right.
Anyways, but let's kind of switch back to the what's happening to the share prices. So the answer is I'm not sure, but what I think it is they borrowed a lot of money, or they raised a lot of capital.
Yeah.
They're burning through it. They really staffed up. They had to hire very expensive labor because an EV is almost just made by robots, practically, if you look at what Tesla has done. But what you really need is a lot of technology talent. And everybody needs talent. See, the problem is that literally everything is, these cars are computers on wheels. And anyways, let me just switch for a second to demand.
Yeah, because that's the issue, right? I mean, at the end of the day, if there's enough demand, the product at some point, sellable, and you get that high demand, limited supply, price goes up. But when you got a limited demand, you got an issue, right?
Yeah, exactly. So one of the hidden surprises of buying an EV is after 3 or 4 years, you get to spend 20 grand or so to replace the battery in your car.
Ouch.
Yeah. So, I look at that and I think, no, I've got a 2003 Toyota Corolla Matrix.
Just getting broken in.
Yeah, exactly. It only has 125,000 miles. I lived in New York, I commuted, but I still have that car. Why? It's free. I keep, you suggested I should get a new car. And
for the revenue side of the equation,
exactly,
right?
Exactly. But my wife loves the car. It's so comfortable for her. So I'm going to have to buy another one and still keep the old car. But it's not going to be an electric car. Because I have some other concerns. I mean, do we know how well insulated we are from the electricity in the car?
Right.
I don't really know. I do know that if you're near high power tension wires, in parts of the country, they found cancer clusters. So I'd like to know more about that. And I remember what happened in Toronto years ago. Solar radiation took out the electric utility. I think it was Toronto, maybe it was Montreal. I can't remember which, but it's one of those two. They got blacked out.
Well, and you're right. Until there's some significant solutions to some of these, we've talked about the charging stations before. Mm-hmm. I mean, until you're absolutely guaranteed that you can, get to the family dinner on Thanksgiving that's a 4-hour drive without stopping, 4.5-hour drive through a charging station, you're not going EV. A friend of yours in Charleston 2 weeks ago said the tipping point is when the boys down south will buy EV pickup trucks.
That's right.
That's when you know that the demand is rock solid and we can move forward, right?
Exactly. That's funny. We have another friend here in Savannah who has to go to Atlanta a lot. And his EV, both him and his wife have an EV, which they charge for free in the parking spaces in Savannah. But the funny thing is he has to borrow his wife's car because his EV doesn't have enough. 325 miles is his range. Atlanta's 260 miles away, but it's not a flat line.
Right.
So he has to know exactly where he's going to park when he gets to Atlanta. He sweats the traffic congestion. So he borrows his wife, which gets like 400 miles.
Yeah.
And even then, you need to know exactly where you're going to go.
So a wrap on the EV is, at this point, there's still maybe more headwinds than there are tailwinds. Mm-hmm. And we were on a call earlier this week with somebody that's been with Rivian for a while. The context of this whole conversation, as we went through that list, and the point was it's an evolving technology.
Yeah,
right? Is. I asked about the batteries. He said, we'll be putting hydrogen fuel cells into the place of that electric battery in 3 years. Maybe, maybe not.
That's right.
To be continued. Walter?
As always.
Thanks, man.
A lot of fun.
Great.
Hey, take care.
See ya. Thanks, guys.